Arrogant recruits bet the old veteran he'd missed the first shot. What happened shocked everyone. The laughter came first. It always does when young men see an old one. Walter Hayes stood at the entrance of the Fort Riley training range. His back was slightly bent. His hair was thin and gray. His hands showed the spots and wrinkles of 73 hard years. He wore an old green jacket, faded, worn at the elbows, no name tag, no patches, nothing to show who he was or what he had done. Just an old man with a small duffel bag. The group of recruits near the weapons table stopped talking. They looked at him. Then they looked at each other. One of them snickered. His name was Private First Class Danny Mercer, 22 years old, tall, confident, the kind of young man who believed he already knew everything about the world. "Guys, look," Danny said, nodding toward Walter. "I think someone's grandfather got lost." The other recruits laughed. There were 5 of them, all young, all strong, all wearing their fresh uniforms like medals they had not yet earned. Walter heard them. He did not react. He simply walked toward the range officer's station. His steps were slow but steady, each one measured, each one deliberate. Like a man who had walked through places these boys could not imagine. Sergeant First Class Marcus Reed was running the range that morning. He saw Walter approaching and immediately stood straighter. His eyes narrowed with recognition. But he said nothing. He simply nodded. Walter nodded back. "Here for the qualification session?" Sergeant Reed asked. "That's right," Walter said. His voice was quiet, calm, like a river that runs deep. Danny Mercer walked over. He could not help himself. The urge to prove something was too strong. "Sir, with all respect, this is a live fire range," Danny said. "Are you sure you're in the right place? The Veterans Center is about 3 miles down the road." Some of the other recruits tried to hold back their laughter. They failed. Walter looked at Danny. His eyes were pale blue, tired but sharp, like old steel that never lost its edge. "I know where I am, son," Walter said. Danny crossed his arms. He smiled the smile of a man who thinks he is winning. "Okay, old-timer, but this is serious training. We're working with M4 carbines today. You know what those are." Walter did not answer immediately. He looked at the table where the rifles were laid out, clean, oiled, ready for use. "I've seen a few," he said softly. Danny laughed out loud this time. "Seen a few? This isn't a museum, sir. These weapons require real skill, real training. I've been shooting since I was 14, top scores in my unit." He pointed at himself with his thumb. "They don't let just anyone touch these." Sergeant Reed stepped forward. His jaw was tight. "Private Mercer, I suggest you." Walter raised a hand, just slightly, just enough. Sergeant Reed stopped. Walter looked at Danny again. No anger, no offense, just patience. "You're proud of your skills," Walter said. "That's good. A man should take pride in what he can do." Danny nodded. "Exactly. So you understand why maybe you should sit this one out." Walter reached into his duffel bag. He pulled out a small case, black leather, old and cracked. He set it on the table and opened it. Inside was a single pistol. A Colt 1911, worn from years of use. The grip was wrapped in old tape. The metal was scratched and dull. But it was clean, perfectly maintained. Danny looked at it and laughed again. "Is that a museum piece? My grandfather had one of those. They don't even use those anymore." "They don't," Walter agreed, "but I do." He lifted the pistol carefully. His hands, shaky before, suddenly became still, as if the weapon itself calmed him. Danny saw this. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt. But his pride pushed it down. "Tell you what, old-timer," Danny said loudly so everyone could hear. "How about a friendly wager?" The other recruits gathered closer. This was entertainment now. "What kind of wager?" Walter asked. Danny grinned. Simple. You take one shot at the 100-yard target. If you hit center mass, I'll carry your bag for the rest of the day and call you sir every time I see you. He paused for effect. But when you miss, and you will miss, you admit you're too old for this and go home. The recruits laughed. Sergeant Reed stepped forward again. Private Mercer, this is completely out of line. I accept, Walter said. The laughter stopped. Everyone stared at him. What? Danny asked. I said I accept your bet. Danny's grin widened. This was too easy. All right then, let's see what you've got, Grandpa. The recruits cleared a path. Someone set up the target at 100 yards, a standard silhouette, black on white. Walter walked to the firing line. His steps were still slow. His back was still bent. He looked exactly like what Danny thought he was. An old man pretending to be something he was not. Walter raised the Colt 1911. His hand was steady now, completely still. Danny whispered to the recruit next to him. Watch this. He's going to shake so bad he'll miss the whole target. But Walter did not shake. He stood perfectly still. His breathing slowed, his eyes focused. And in that moment, something changed. The old man disappeared. What remained was something else entirely. A soldier. A shooter. A man who had done this 1,000 times before. In places where missing meant death. Walter's finger touched the trigger. He did not squeeze. Not yet. His mind drifted back. It always did before a shot. He was 23 again. Vietnam, 1969. The jungle was thick and hot. His spotter lay beside him in the mud. They had been waiting for 18 hours. One target, one chance. An enemy commander who had ordered the deaths of 12 American prisoners. The distance was 700 yards. Walter remembered the weight of the rifle, the sweat on his face, the silence before the shot. He remembered squeezing the trigger. And the silence after. The present returned. The range, the recruits, the bet. Walter looked at the target. 100 yards. So close. Too close. His finger squeezed. The shot rang out across the range. Clean, sharp, final. Everyone stared at the target. Sergeant Reed raised his binoculars. Then he lowered them slowly. His face showed nothing, but his voice shook when he spoke. Dead center, he said. Perfect hit. The recruits went silent. Danny's grin disappeared. Walter lowered the pistol. He did not celebrate. He did not speak. He simply stood there as calm as he had been before. Like nothing had happened. Like hitting a perfect shot was the most normal thing in the world. Danny's face turned red. Embarrassment and anger mixed together. Lucky shot, he said quickly. Anyone can get lucky once. Walter turned to look at him. There was no anger in his eyes, no judgment, just a deep sadness that Danny did not understand. Would you like me to shoot again? Walter asked. His voice was soft, almost gentle. Danny's pride screamed at him to say yes, to demand proof. But something else was screaming louder now. Fear. He looked at the old man's eyes and saw something there, something cold, something ancient. The eyes of a man who had seen things that could not be unseen. The eyes of a man who had taken lives. Not in anger, not in hate. In duty. Danny opened his mouth to respond. But before he could speak, a vehicle pulled up to the range. A black SUV with tinted windows. Everyone turned to look. The door opened. A man in a general's uniform stepped out. The general was older than most, silver hair cut short, a chest full of ribbons and medals, 3 stars on his shoulders. Lieutenant General Thomas Briggs. Every recruit on that range knew who he was. He commanded the entire base. The recruits snapped to attention. Even Danny stood straight, his arrogance replaced by fear. But General Briggs did not look at them. He walked straight to Walter. And then he did something that made every jaw drop. He saluted. A three-star general saluted the old man in the faded green jacket. "Master Sergeant Hayes," General Briggs said, "it's an honor to see you again." Walter returned the salute slowly, respectfully. "General Briggs, you've come a long way for a training exercise." Briggs smiled. "When I heard you were coming to speak to the new snipers, I cleared my schedule. Couldn't miss this." Danny's face went pale. "Master Sergeant." "Sniper instructor." His legs felt weak. General Briggs turned to look at the recruits. His eyes moved across each face until they stopped on Danny. "I see you've already met some of our newest soldiers," the general said. His voice was calm, but there was iron underneath. "We've met," Walter said simply. Briggs nodded slowly. He looked at Sergeant Reed. "Sergeant, please inform these recruits who they've been speaking to." Sergeant Reed stepped forward. He had been waiting for this moment. "Gentlemen, this is Master Sergeant Walter Hayes, retired, United States Army, 67th Special Operations Group." He paused to let the words sink in. Master Sergeant Hayes served 3 tours in Vietnam, 2 in the Gulf. He has 87 confirmed eliminations as a long-range specialist. Danny's breath caught in his throat. 87. Sergeant Reed continued. He received the Silver Star twice, the Bronze Star with Valor 3 times, and the Distinguished Service Cross for actions that remain classified to this day. The recruits stood frozen. They had been mocking a legend. A ghost. A man who had done things they would only read about in books. Sergeant Reed's voice grew harder. "Master Sergeant Hayes is here because the Army asked him to return, to train the next generation of precision shooters, to pass on knowledge that cannot be learned from manuals." He looked directly at Danny. "And you bet him he would miss." Danny wanted to disappear, to sink into the ground, to be anywhere but here. But there was nowhere to go. General Briggs stepped closer to the recruits. His presence filled the space like a storm cloud. "Do you boys know what a man like Walter Hayes sacrificed for this country?" No one answered. He gave up his youth, his health, his peace of mind. He spent months in jungles and deserts, lying perfectly still, waiting for one moment, one shot, one chance to protect men like you. Briggs pointed at Danny. Men who had not yet earned the right to wear the uniform he bled in. Danny's eyes dropped to the ground. Shame burned through him like fire. Walter watched all of this in silence. His face showed nothing, no satisfaction, no pride. Only patience. General Briggs turned back to him. "Walter, I apologize for the behavior of these recruits. This is not the welcome you deserved." Walter shook his head slowly. "No apology needed, General." He looked at Danny, at the other young men, at their fear and embarrassment. "They're young," Walter said. "Young men are supposed to be foolish. It's how they learn." He walked toward Danny. His steps were slow again, his back bent. He looked old once more. But now everyone saw him differently. Now they saw the weight he carried. The weight of 87 souls. The weight of friends lost and missions completed. The weight of decades spent in service to a country that often forgot its warriors. Walter stopped in front of Danny. He reached into his jacket and pulled out something small. A photograph. Old, faded, creased from years of handling. He held it out to Danny. "Take a look." Danny's hands trembled as he took the photo. It showed a group of young soldiers. They were standing in a jungle clearing. Their faces were dirty but smiling. "That's my unit," Walter said. "Vietnam, 1969, we were your age, some younger." He pointed to a face in the photo. That's Jimmy Collins. He wanted to be a teacher when he got home, never made it. He pointed to another. Marcus Webb had a baby girl he never met. Another face. Tommy Briggs, the general's older brother, best friend I ever had. Danny looked up at General Briggs. The general's eyes were wet. Tommy died saving my life, Walter said quietly. Pushed me out of the way when the ambush started. Took the bullets that were meant for me. His voice remained steady, but the pain was there, buried deep. I've carried him with me for 54 years. Every shot I ever took after that I took for him, for all of them. Danny's hands shook. He tried to give the photo back. Walter shook his head. Keep it. Look at their faces when you think you know everything. Remember that every old man was once young. Every slow body once ran fast. Every quiet voice once shouted in battle. He placed a hand on Danny's shoulder. The uniform doesn't make you a soldier, son. Service does. Sacrifice does. Respect for those who came before does. Danny's eyes filled with tears. He could not stop them. He did not try. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry, Master Sergeant. Walter nodded slowly. I know you are. That's why you'll be a good soldier someday. He turned to the other recruits. All of you will, if you remember one thing. He paused. Everyone leaned in. Skill is nothing without humility. Strength is nothing without honor. And pride is poison if it makes you blind to wisdom. The range was completely silent. No one moved, no one spoke. General Briggs stepped forward and stood beside Walter. Master Sergeant Hayes will be working with our sniper candidates for the next 6 weeks. Every one of you will have the chance to learn from him. He looked at Danny. Private Mercer, you'll be assigned as his personal assistant for that time. You'll carry his gear, set up his equipment, and listen to every word he says. Danny nodded immediately. Yes, sir, thank you, sir. For the first time, he meant it. Walter smiled slightly, just a small curve of his lips. We start tomorrow at 0500. Bring water, bring patience, leave your ego at the gate. He picked up his duffel bag. Then he stopped. He turned back to Danny. One more thing, Private. Danny straightened. Yes, Master Sergeant. Walter's eyes softened. About that bet, you don't have to carry my bag or call me sir. Danny frowned, but I lost fair and square. Walter shook his head. The bet was never about winning or losing. It was about teaching you something. He started walking toward the vehicles. The real shot isn't the one that hits the target, son. It's the one that changes a mind. Today, your mind changed. That's worth more than any bet. He climbed into General Briggs' SUV. The door closed. The vehicle drove away. Danny stood there for a long time, holding the old photograph, looking at the young faces of men who never came home. That night, he wrote a letter to his own grandfather, a man he had not spoken to in 3 years, a man who had served in Korea and never talked about it. Danny apologized for his impatience, his arrogance, his failure to listen. He promised to do better. 6 weeks later, Danny graduated from the sniper training program. Top of his class. Walter Hayes pinned the badge on his chest personally. I'm proud of you, son, Walter said quietly. Danny stood at attention, tears in his eyes again. I learned from the best, Master Sergeant. Walter smiled. No, you learned from your mistakes. That's the only teacher that matters. He shook Danny's hand. Then he walked away. Slow steps bent back, faded jacket. Just an old man with a small duffel bag. But now Danny knew the truth. Heroes don't always look like heroes. Sometimes they look like grandfathers. Sometimes they speak softly. Sometimes they carry wounds no one can see. And sometimes The greatest warriors are the ones who never need to prove a thing, because their service speaks for itself. Quietly, forever. The end.